You are listening to The Overwhelmed Brain. Today's episode is brought to you by GetOutOfTheMess.com. Let Asha, your Legal Shield associate, connect you to a legal insurance plan that's right for you. Quality attorneys at established law firms for about $20 a month.
I love Get Out of the Mess.
Are you annoyed by affirmations? Are you tired of that same old, rehashed personal growth advice that all seems to boil down to, think positively and all your problems will go away? If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then I want you to get ready. The Overwhelmed Brain is here to help you create the life you want now. Welcome to the Overwhelmed Brain. I am your host, personal empowerment coach Paul Coliani. I am here to help you increase your emotional intelligence, strengthen your self-worth and self-esteem, and empower you so that you can make decisions that are right for you. Everything I talk about on this show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your medical treatment. All right, the first subject I want to talk about is obsessions. Obsessions in the sense where you are obsessed with someone in your life. Maybe it's an ex, maybe it's someone you're thinking about, maybe it's someone at work, maybe it's someone, I don't know, at the library. I can relate to this topic because, I don't know, when I was a teenager, I guess it might have started. My obsessive, yeah, definitely a teenager. When I was with my first girlfriend, I became obsessed over some of the stuff that she was telling me because she had male friends. And male friends were threats. You know, to my teenage mind, that's what they were. Anyone that wasn't a woman was a threat. So, as a young man that really had a lot of, I don't know, trust issues and wasn't sure how the world of relationships worked that well because this was my first true relationship with anyone, I became obsessed with who she hung out with, who she talked to on the phone, who she talked about, as long as they were male. So if they were male, I wanted to know more, and I would, dig lightly, meaning I would want to find out more information about, not make her believe that I was trying to find out more information because I wanted to catch her in some sort of, romantic crime. I wanted to find out if she was, cheating on me or was interested in anyone else. And I stayed obsessed for, the length of time we were together, I guess. I mean, it got worse over time where she couldn't even mention a guy's name, or I would just start to sizzle inside and think about, well, who is this guy? What is she doing with this guy? How does she know this guy's name? And then sometimes my obsession about that would come to fruition. It would actually manifest into something that gave me evidence that something must be going on. Like one day she came home wearing a jacket of one of my friends. And I'm like, why are you wearing his jacket? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so we had a conversation about that. And she's like, I don't know, he just gave it to me. And I'm like, really? So I had all these thoughts go through my head and thinking, that's not very innocent. That's not what a guy does to another guy's girlfriend. So, I had those kind of thoughts. And then one day I was, and I've told the story before, I was outside of her work at night and wanted to find out who she talked to after work. Because she mentioned talking to someone after work, trying to help him through his problems. And I wanted to know who this him was. So I would sneak around outside her work. Mind you, I was very young. I was still a teenager, but that's very young for most men. And when she came out, I saw her talking to him. Then they took a walk around the building, and then they came back, and they were still talking. And everything looked innocent, but my mind made it into something, devious. And I confronted her about it the next day, and she's like, yeah, we talked. What's the problem? And I'm like, well, what were you doing behind the building? And I was trying to catch her. And I think that's what obsession does, is it causes us to gather evidence, to catch the person, to confront the person, to say, aha, this is what you're doing, and I knew it all along. And we actually bring that vibe, that energy into the relationship. And regardless of how we behave externally, it seems like our partners, our exes, or whoever can detect it. They can sense it. They figure it out somehow, or they realize they don't like the vibe that we're putting off because there's just something, yes, obsessive, but desperate, maybe fear-based. And we keep bringing this energy into our conversations, and we ask certain questions, and they pick up on those questions, and they wonder why we're asking that particular question about that particular person or that particular day at what particular time. They pick up on it. So if you have any obsessive thoughts, I mean, there's other types of obsession too, like when several of my girlfriends over the years have dumped me, I would kind of develop a stalking behavior. I wanted to know what they were doing. If they weren't with me, what were they doing? And then I might sneak around and follow them. And later on, when I was married and we separated, and divorce was, imminent, I wanted to know what my future ex-wife was doing and who she was with. So I looked online and tried to find out where she was and who she was with. And then when we did talk, I would ask questions about those people. And so I took this obsession type mentality with me through the decades. I mean, I had that up until my late 30s, even early 40s. And I mean, in my early 40s, the obsession wasn't so crazy then. I wasn't physically following her. I was just cyber stalking her, where you're looking at all her Facebook posts and you're looking her up online, trying to figure out where she is, because you just have to know. Even though there may be nothing you can do about it, you just have to know. As part of the obsession is you fill your mind with all these points of reference and evidence to somehow put a bigger picture together. But what really, and this is kind of a guess, what really might be happening, at least from my own experience, is that I was trying to put enough pieces together to figure out if there was going to be a chance for me. And this is what obsessive thoughts do to us. They put us into a state of continuously searching for that crack in the door that we can put our foot in and open and slip through. I've had clients that have set up days and times to be a certain place that they knew their ex would be in hopes to create a, quote, chance encounter that might open up a dialogue. And it did happen. Dialogues were open and conversations did ensue. And regardless of the outcome, whether it was a good outcome or a bad outcome, it came from a mentality of obsession, of stalking, which is very close to obsession, of continuously wondering what the other person is doing, who they're with, what they're thinking. So I don't have to really explain obsession too much, because I'm pretty sure that most people listening now have dealt with this in some way, shape, or form. Either you have been obsessed about someone else or something else, typically with people, and I'm talking about obsession with people, or someone has been obsessed with you. It's like an unstoppable force. I know when I felt obsession, it was an unstoppable force. I could not control it. All I could think about was her. And, fill in the blank. Her could have been my first girlfriend, my second girlfriend, my wife, so on and so forth. There were people in my life. My coworkers, attractive coworkers that I've had in the past. This is when I was younger again, I've become very obsessed with people I've worked with. Not to the extent of ex-girlfriends, but still, those thoughts are very similar in that effect. So the reason I brought up obsession is because it's something I've touched on a little bit, obsessive thoughts, in one episode. I think it was an episode called, where is it? Oh, it's the episode I did called Breaking Through Obsessive Thoughts. And the rest of the episode title is Everyone Toxic and the Real Issue in the Relationship? And the Breaking Through Obsessive Thoughts segment is going to give you a list of items to go through to help you kind of bust the pattern that's going on inside you about obsessive thoughts. So I did touch on this in that episode a while back. It was February of 2017. But I didn't really dive into the idea of obsession itself. Because obsessive thoughts are one thing. Obsession is another thing. I actually have a definition for obsession I want to read to you here. This is something I made up. And again, this is about obsession about people. Obsession is endless thought and behavior centered around an individual, even if failure is clear. I could probably word that better, but that's pretty much what it is. When I was obsessed and I knew that failure was clear, I could not apply that to my behavior. I knew that I would fail, that she didn't want me anymore, that she wasn't in love with me anymore, but I was so obsessed that that failure didn't matter. And that's key. I mean, for someone to be obsessed, like if you've ever been obsessed and knew that the other person didn't like you, the other person didn't want you around, you knew that it was a pointless effort to pursue that person, why did you continue pursuing? I can tell you why from my point of view. My point of view, and probably yours if you've been in this situation, is that maybe they'll change their mind. Maybe if they see this desperate, obsessed person, they'll go, oh, that's who I want in my life. Yes, there's a little sarcasm there, but I want it to be a realization, if it hasn't been realized already, is that when we get into an obsessive state and we are desperately stalking or even mind stalking, like we constantly think about them, we're constantly looking at them on social media, we're just doing everything we can except physically following them around. And we know that they don't want us in their life. By continuing to pursue them, even in our own mind, there is a desperation there, and there's probably a fear there. There's probably anxiety. There's probably endless thoughts. There's probably pain. They don't want to be with me. I want to be with them. And there's the fears that they'll want to be with other people. Seeing them with other people is hard. I remember for me, it was any time spent with anyone else, even if they were by themselves, any time spent without me, hurt. Now, that's not a healthy place. You know, I can talk about this today because I've gotten beyond this. I've healed from obsessive thoughts. And I've also come to a place of, if someone doesn't want me, then I don't want them. That is a healthier place. I'm not saying it's a great place to be, but I tell you what, it's a lot easier on me. It's a lot easier on you if you feel obsessed about someone and they don't want you, or they're not giving you a clear indication that it's a go and they're giving you a green light. Then it's a lot easier to just go, okay, that person's off limits. I won't pursue that anymore. I'll put my time and energy somewhere else. But that's the hard part. I mean, that's why I'm talking about this, is that when you're obsessed, you have trouble doing that. You have trouble putting your time and energy toward other things. I remember one time I worked with a very attractive girl in my early 20s, and I was just, infatuated. I could not take my eyes off her. I would say inappropriate things. By today's standards, it would be definitely sexual harassment. And I don't know why she didn't slap me across the face sometimes. But later on in life, 30 years later, when I think about that, I go, oh my God, I was so awful. I just want to see her in person and say, I'm sorry. I just want to send her a message and say, I'm sorry. That is not who I am today, and I should have known better. But I had to grow through it. I had to understand The only way I understood that it was very hard for her, putting her in an awkward position because she didn't want me. She didn't, I mean, I think she was even married. I was like, she doesn't want me. She was being faithful to her husband, and she wasn't going to do anything with me. And she made that clear. And she became even more standoffish the worse I got. So there were clear signals that it was a failure, yet I kept pursuing it in hopes that the door would be open a crack and I could get through. The problem with that is that the more you pursue someone who doesn't want you, the more you drive them away. I mean, it's just clear over and over again. I see this with clients. I've seen this in my own life time and time again. The more obsessed you are, the more you follow them, stalk them, text them, message them, whatever it takes for you to get a hold of them, to find out where they are, what they're doing, who they're with, the more they want to get away from you. And that is hard because the obsessed person wants to be close to them, and all of their behavior screams, get away from me. I am dangerous. I'm not saying that you are dangerous, but that's what it screams. I'm dangerous. Get away from me because I'm going to follow you. I'm going to stalk you. I'm going to find out exactly what you're doing at all times of the day. I'm going to go totally 1984 on you and follow you and mentally record everything you do. That's scary. I mean, when you hear me say that, that's a scary place to be. But the obsession that takes over, this is what happens. This is what we do. We get obsessed and we do it anyway. Even though failure is imminent. Failure is the only option. I'm not saying that's with everyone. There's some people out there that maybe they'll open the door. I'm talking about people who absolutely don't want us around, yet we're still obsessed. Now, there is something the obsessed person can do to help stop or at least minimize their obsession. And there's a few things that I've noted here that I'm going to kind of go over. And, I was wondering, how could I help someone who's obsessed? Because obsession is not easy to conquer. Even for somebody like me who has studied all kinds of human behavior, who have helped people break through some really hard stuff, obsession overpowers even the best of us, even the best people helpers out there. Because when someone wants what they want, they go after what they want no matter what. No matter what. So, one of the things I did was I wonder if anyone has actually given good advice online about how to stop being obsessed. And some of the stuff I read, I just, I tried it on. I was like, okay, if I'm obsessed, is this going to work? And one of the pieces of advice I read was, separate yourself, distance yourself from the person. And I thought, wait, if I can do that, I wouldn't be obsessed. I mean, that's what obsession is. I want to be closer to the person. I want to be in that person's life. If I could just walk away, then I wouldn't be obsessed looking for answers on how to not be obsessed. So I thought that was kind of, basic. And I read a few others, and I'm not going to make fun of them all. But when I try on obsession now, I go, this wouldn't work for me. So I have to go outside the box and really connect with where obsession hits us. Again, I have my own personal experience being obsessed. Has anyone ever been obsessed with me? I did have a woman obsessed with me once, maybe more than once that I don't know of. But, I really can't call it obsessed. You know what? I think there's a difference. Some people are, hey, I really like you. Let's go out sometime. And you're like, no, thanks. That's nice, but no. And then they see you again. Hey, I really like you. Let's go out sometime. And I'm like, no. So I've had people like that in my life. I guess I couldn't call that obsession, especially the way in the past, have gotten obsessed. I don't think they were looking through my garbage. Have I done that? Oh my God. I might have done something like that. This is a long time ago. But this is why I can speak on it. But there are things that you can do if you feel obsessed with someone. First of all, let's go over some of the symptoms. If you're feeling anxiety about what the other person is doing or even thinking, what's on their mind? Who's on their mind? That's part of it. If you can't stop thinking about the other person, Every thought that you have includes them, or at least leads to them. If you feel like physical pain from not being with them, that could be another symptom of feeling obsessed. If you have a deep fear that they don't want to be with you, if you have this deep longing to be with them, I know what you're thinking, but this is love. Some of what you're describing is being in love. Well, there's a fine line between being in love and being obsessed. When we come back, I'll talk about that fine line, and I will share with you some steps that you can take if you feel at all obsessed about anyone, so that you can start the healing process of getting back to normal, getting back to feeling better. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is part 2 of the obsession segment. I want to tell you about the fine line between obsession and being in love, and also give you some steps to help you get beyond the obsession. If you heard a few episodes ago, I talked about the difference between, or at least my definition, of being in love and being obsessed. Love is supporting the other person's happiness, even if their happiness doesn't include you. Being in love is when you love the feeling you have when they're in your life. It's combining your love for them, supporting their happiness, with how you feel inside for them, being in love. So in love includes love, which supports their happiness. So if you are in love with someone, yet you obsess about them, and you want them back in your life, or you can't stop thinking about them for other reasons or whatever, then are you really in love with them? And the reason I say that is because if you are obsessed with someone who doesn't want you, then that doesn't support their happiness by you hanging out, stalking them, trying to get close to them, sending them messages. That doesn't support their happiness. In fact, it makes them unhappy. So if you are obsessed with someone and are always trying to communicate with this other person and trying to get them back in your life, and they don't want it, in my opinion, that's not being in love. Because being in love includes supporting their path, even if that path doesn't include you. So anyway, I talked about that in another episode, but I wanted to kind of put that out there too, because this isn't about being in love, and that's why I'm so enamored thinking about this person. There's a difference. And it's good to know this difference. It's good to know practically, so your brain can be wrapped around this, that if I was really in love, what would I do? How would I support this person then? But if I'm obsessed, then there's some selfish need that I want to fulfill in me. It may not feel selfish. It may feel like I know I can make this person happy, but it really does come down to that, I hate to say. The next symptom that I want to talk about is fear that you'll see them with other people, fear that they'll be with other people, or what I said earlier, fear of them being without you in any way, shape, or form. That's another symptom of obsession. And another one is when you're always calling or arriving at their home or place of work or where you know they're going to be. If you're texting them, if you're messaging them, if you're cyber stalking them, you're always checking out their Facebook and their Twitter and other social media sites. And if you're near them and you get to look through their phone, you're checking out who they're talking to, who they're texting, who they're messaging. All of these things are definite signs of obsession and probably should be curbed so that you don't push them away. Because obsession from you creates repelling from them. You are repelling them the more you are obsessed about them, typically. I'm not saying everyone does this, because there are some people who, when you're obsessed about them, they don't know how to draw the line and create a boundary that's very clear so that you back off. Not that, if you're obsessed, you may not back off, but there are people out there that don't know how to honor their boundaries and say, stop following me, stop texting me, stop calling me, or even going further and blocking you at every possible avenue. It's that no contact thing. No contact whatsoever, and I'm going to block you at every avenue, so eventually you just disappear from my life. That's the ultimate repelling. So anyway, there's some symptoms of obsession. Let's talk about some, unique ways that our obsession about someone could be curbed, could stop. How can we heal from this? How can we get beyond it? Before I say anything, it's extremely hard. It is extremely difficult if you are truly obsessed to stop being obsessed. It is. It is hard. But I'm going to go through these anyway, and it will probably take one-on-one work, therapist coaching, whatever you prefer, so that if you feel like you're obsessed, you may need to talk about it with someone else. It is very difficult. And I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm not saying it's going to be very difficult for everyone, but in general, it is pretty difficult. And it's just good to know this going in. Like, I'm obsessed and I can't stop. Okay, just know that it's difficult. Give yourself a break there. It is difficult to stop. Okay, there's the precursor to what I'm about to say next, which are some steps to resolve. One is the person you're obsessed about, and I'm only talking to people out there that are listening that have ever felt obsessed or are obsessed now. The person you're obsessed about, get clarity from that person, meaning ask them, what do they want? And then when they give you the answer, give them a safe place to tell you. Let them feel safe when they tell you. You don't want to create an unsafe environment by asking, do you still want to be with me? Now, if you say no, I don't know what I'll do. I might hurt myself or worse. So just tell me the truth. If you ask like that, that's a manipulation. That is a threat that will make them feel guilty for telling you the truth. Don't set people up to make them feel guilty if they're telling you the truth. Give them that safe place to express themselves. Yes, so one of the steps is to get clarity from them. What do they want? Find out. Make it safe for them to tell you. Another step is swallow hard and ask the hard question that you fear the answer to. So when you ask, be honest with me. Do you want to be with me? Is there a chance for us? Just be honest, because I just need to know. I just need closure of some sort. If there's a chance, then I want to do everything I can to show you that I'm the right person for you. But if there's no chance, just tell me now. I just need to know so that I can move on with my life. You may not want to say that. You may not want them to say, no, there's no chance. But like I said, and I'm going to repeat this, swallow hard, like gulp, because you're going to find out something hard to hear, or you may, and ask the question. Be honest with me. Do you want to be with me? Or, whatever that question is for you, depending on your relationship with the person. The next step is a follow-up to that step, which is if they say, no, I don't want to be with you, swallow harder and accept the answer and tell them that you'll leave them alone. That is so hard, but do it anyway. Now, the trick behind this is to actually do it. When you leave them alone, you have to systematically turn off all your obsessive avenues. You got to turn off any type of stalking behavior, any type of cyber stalking, any type of thing where you find out where they are and what they're doing and you end up meeting them there. You just want to make sure that you try to cut yourself off from all this stuff. Yes, I make it sound easy. Just cut yourself off. I know the internal dialogue. You'll be thinking about them. You're wondering about them. You'll be tempted to get in touch with them. But if you say it, what is the best way to show that you have evolved, that you are a better person? It's by following up and being congruent with what you said to them. All right, you don't want to be with me. I'll leave you alone. I'll honor your path. I'll honor your wishes. That's not a repelling comment to them. That is something they can grasp onto, and when it's proven that you will actually follow through, the person will feel just a tad more trusting toward you. Another step is ask yourself, do I really want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me? Now, if you're obsessed, you'll say, I don't care. I love that person. I know if they just give me a chance, I can make them happy. But listen to the fear when I kind of role play that. I don't care. I love that person. I know if they just give me a chance. That fear is what's driving your behavior, that obsession. You just have to be aware that there's a fear in there that's not being addressed. It's not so much about that person, because there's probably another person that could end up in your life too, where you might get obsessed with them, and it's like, well, if it's not that person and the other person can do the very same thing to me, then maybe it's something in me. Maybe there's a common denominator that I need to address. Why do I fear? Is it a fear of abandonment? Is it a fear of rejection? Is it a fear of being unloved or unlovable? Is it a fear that I'm not important? I mean, there's a whole slew of things that I talk about on other episodes that I highly recommend you listen to if any of those resonate with you. But it's important to address what's going on inside of you and not think about that it's only about this person. It must be this person in my life. I have to have this person in my life, because you're not addressing the real issue. Because if that person dies or ends up getting married or just disappears altogether, that doesn't mean you'll be unhappy for the rest of your life, because there's other people in the world, and the other people could make you even happier if that's what you're doing, is relying externally on other people to make you happy. So it's not the idea that it's only one person that can make you happy for the rest of your life. It is the idea that there's something that you feel that person does for you that fulfills you, that makes you feel better inside yourself. So it's important to understand what it is that's missing when a particular person is not in your life. And when you pinpoint and narrow down what that is in you and start healing that, then the desperation and the fear and the worry and the anxiety and all that stuff can start to slowly dissipate. And you don't become obsessive and subsequently repelling because you've healed from a lot of that stuff. Then you can actually healthily love and healthily be in love without it being a unhealthy pursuit. Now, if you can't accept that it's better to not pursue someone who doesn't want to be with you, then ask yourself the next question. Do I really want this person to be happy? Do I really want it? Yes, this goes back to, do I love this person? But I don't want you to say that, because sometimes we skew love in our brain. Of course I love this person. I want you to say, do I really want this person to be happy? Do I really want it? Because if you answer yes, then ask yourself the next question, which is, what would make them happy? And if their answer is following a course that doesn't include you, swallow hard and say, all right, I'll leave you alone. Now, if you find that you can't leave them alone no matter what, then it's time to be really honest with yourself if you haven't been up till now. You may have to admit to yourself, I don't really want them to be happy. I want me to be happy, and I want to be with them regardless of what they want. I mean, think about that. Is that true? I'll say it again, and this is if you find that you can't leave them alone. I don't really want them to be happy. I don't want them hanging out with people that make them happy. I don't want them doing things that make them happy. I want me to be happy, and I want to be with them regardless of what they want. Because if you really let that sink in, it might help you start to differentiate that it may not be in anyone's best interest to continue a pursuit of obsession. Again, I know obsession is hard to break, and just hearing my words isn't really going to do it, but if you just start practicing in little ways, it can pay off. Now, I know that last statement I made, I don't really want them to be happy. I want me to be happy and to be with them regardless of what they want. I know that sounds awful, but if they've already said they don't want to be with you, and you really want to fulfill their dreams and desires because you're the person that says you can do that for them, test yourself and pull through to fulfill their dream of you not being in their life. Ouch, I know. I never said this was easy. But if you can't let them go and you continue to be obsessed and you're doing all the things they don't want you to do, you can't really care about them. That's a harsh statement to make, I know. But put all these dots together that I'm helping you connect. I am sorry if I'm pushing your buttons. I've been there. I don't mean to make you upset if you are, because I know how this feels. Now, let me finish this up by telling you the only thing that worked for me in my most obsessed state. And this is the absolute hardest path, but it can work very well. But I will recommend that you don't do the following if you're at all unstable. Now, what is unstable? If you're capable of losing it and being violent or being completely unreasonable, completely irrational, whatever unstable means to you. I mean, if you can't control yourself and you just want to go all out to the point where it's almost illegal, I highly recommend you don't do the following if you're at all unstable. So, if you're unstable, block your ears. But I'm going to tell you what I did. I'm going to assume that you're not unstable listening to a show like this. Most unstable people don't tune into these shows unless they want stability in their life. So here's what I did. Now, this is a very fragile path that only a few can take. But if you aren't able to stop your obsession after all the ways I've already mentioned, and after reading blog articles and finding videos online and, seeing therapy, anything, after all of this, if you still can't do it, this is a last-ditch effort, and it is the most difficult path. Let me preface it by saying this. Overexposure leads to desensitization. It also leads to the eventual thought of, what the hell am I doing? So, what do I mean by that? If you haven't gotten it, overexposure means that you completely immerse yourself in the obsession. Every waking moment, and I know somebody's out there going, yes, that's what I do anyway. But you immerse your mind with every possible worst case scenario. You see them with other people. You look at their social media day and night. You make yourself so obsessed that almost nothing else matters. You're skipping work. You're not eating. And this is terrible advice. Don't follow it. But this is what I did. I'm just sharing with you what I did as a last-ditch effort, that I over-immersed myself. I became saturated in my obsession because I wanted to overdo it. I wanted to get to the point where I was so overexposed that I was desensitized. I saw her in pictures with other people, and I'm thinking, who is that? And I wonder what she's doing with that guy. I wonder how much fun she's having. I bet you she's having a lot of fun. I bet you she's having sex with him. I would purposely exaggerate the things that I saw. I would make it true. All of this true. This overloads the brain. All of this overexposure, all of this saturation, gets your brain to a point of can't take it anymore. And it's almost as if you have a breakdown and you feel completely defeated. And that feeling of defeat is often a breakthrough. It's often the moment of truth where you go, what the hell am I doing? I'm wasting so much time obsessed over this person. I'm missing work. I'm not eating right. I've got low energy. This is ridiculous. Some people, in order to get to that point, have to go through this last-ditch effort. Again, I don't recommend it because if it gets so bad that you can't handle it and you might cause harm to yourself or others, then you need to talk to someone. You need some therapy. You need something. So I recommend that. And quite frankly, I don't recommend you do this last option. This is out there if you want to try it. But I wanted to share this with you because it's what I did and is what has helped me to get to a place where I felt so defeated and there was nothing I could do. And finally, it popped me out of the trance that I was in of obsession. So hopefully you never have to get to that point. Definitely try everything else first. But if nothing else works, including therapy or coaching, see if that last step can get you there. My disclaimer, this is only my opinion. always seek counseling when your psychological issues are just too tough to handle on your own. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I want to remind you of our sponsor and a service that I find incredibly useful. GetOutOfTheMess.com. Asha is a representative for Legal Shield, and she can connect you with a legal service that she calls legal insurance. What is legal insurance? It's any time you need advice from a lawyer. It is also services that they do almost as if you have a legal assistant at your beck and call. And I tell you what, this is a fantastic service. You've heard me talk about it before. And if not, let's just say that I've used them several times, and Asha has used them multiple times for many things in her life. Anything from like, you want to call them about auto insurance. They're not giving you enough money for an accident, or they're trying to raise your rates and you want to know if it's legal. Or maybe you've got a speeding ticket, or maybe you're dealing with an ex who's trying to sue you, and you want to know what your rights are. I mean, this is really all about knowing what your rights are. And a lot of us don't go around studying law. So it's nice to have this encyclopedia of law at our disposal. And it's not just an encyclopedia. These are real attorneys at real law firms in your state. If you're in the US or Canada, I want you to really consider calling Asha at 678-355-8777 and find out if this legal insurance plan is right for you. Asha said that she would rather go without medical insurance than this stuff. So that says a lot, because after her foot surgery this year, she spent thousands upon thousands getting that taken care of. So for her to say that, that tells you something. Check out her website, getoutofthemess.com. There's some video testimonials there. And of course, this is Legal Shield. You've heard of this service. She can answer your questions, and she's not here to sell you on it. She's just here to tell you about it. And of course, if you do buy through her, she gets credit through the company. It's a reputable company. You've heard about them for years. Check it out. Go to getoutofthemess.com and ask Asha any question you want to find out if this is right for you. Let her be your representative. 678-355-8777. All right, we're back. I'm going to read you an email that I received, and we'll see where we go with it. It is from someone I'm going to call Linda. Linda writes, "Hey, Paul, I've been listening to your podcast for a couple months now, and I think it's great. It has helped me a lot to realize so many things about myself and also to grow as a person. So I have to say thank you." You're welcome, Linda. Thank you, too. My marriage is going through a hard time. I've had some realizations about myself. I have a lot of insecurities that I've been working on. I'm controlling, emotionally clingy, and I like to manipulate things to get what I want. On the other hand, I've realized that my husband takes my insecurities as weaknesses and uses them against me to get what he wants. Most of the time, I feel I can't express my opinions because if I do, he'll press my buttons to trigger me, even though I'm working on myself. I find it extremely challenging and also a bit unfair. He's repeatedly told me that I am the only one with the problem and usually shifts the responsibility of everything that happens in the relationship to me. A couple months ago, after having a problem that came out of one of my insecurities, he told me that if I didn't go to see a psychiatrist, he will divorce me. So I agreed to go. The psychiatrist advised couples therapy as well as individual sessions for the both of us, which kind of made me realize that yes, I have insecurities, but not everything that happened in the relationship is my fault. That took a massive amount of guilt away from me and allowed me to see the situation from a different perspective. But now I'm very confused. I know I have things I need to work on, but I constantly feel emotionally bullied and controlled by him. Since we started therapy, I have been growing resentment against him from situations that happened in the past, and I don't know how to move beyond them. I'm thinking that the relationship has been extremely toxic and it's never going to work out, and I may be wasting my time hoping for it to evolve. But then I ask myself, is this my reason talking or my insecurity telling me to run away instead of facing reality? I feel very distant from him, and almost everything he does annoys me. Sometimes I think I want to call it quits before it ends up really bad. But then I think, what if it was me who was the one who made him that way, and now that I am healing, it will change everything? But then I think I'm just scared of being alone, and I don't want to face the truth. I'm very confused, and I don't know what to do. My mind is going in circles, and I can't find an exit. What's your opinion? Is there anything you can advise? Linda, thank you so much for writing that and sharing that story, because that sounds like a very difficult situation. I get it. And you're right in alignment with what I would define as a manipulative relationship. I mean, some of the things that you said. And one of the questions I have for you, which you're not here to answer, but it is important, is that you said that he said, if you go to therapy, then we won't get a divorce, or however you said it. So you went to therapy, and now you said that we are going to therapy. So I'm hoping that's true. I hope that you're both seeing counselors, maybe individually and together. Because if you go to see a counselor together, then they can watch how you communicate with each other, and they can catch things that you wouldn't be able to do so yourself in the situation, at home or something like that. So if you're both going to therapy, beautiful. I mean, that's going to make some changes, hopefully, in your relationship and in the situation. What concerned me at first is when you said, he said that the only person with the problem is you. And he shifts the responsibility of everything that happens in the relationship to you. That is a huge warning sign of manipulative behavior. That is someone saying, I don't take responsibility for my role in this relationship. You're the one with the problem. And since a relationship requires two people, I want you to fix it. Can you tell the irrationality there? That is definitely irrational. When you're having a relationship issue, regardless of fault, it is both your responsibility, always, to both try to improve it, heal from it, get help for it. It is both of you. It's not like, the TV's broken and one of you has to call the repairman. It's not like that at all. This is both of you play a part in the relationship. Even if he thinks he's 100% right all the time, he's still playing a part of a person who receives information from you and a person who transmits information from you. It sounds so stale when I talk like that. But the idea is that you're both communicating with each other, and when one person is the one that's getting blamed and putting all the responsibility on, then the other person gets away scot-free and they don't have to do anything about it. That's a nice place to be, isn't it? I don't have to do anything about it. You go get fixed. That was like me when I was married, judging my wife, saying, if you just comply with what I want you to do, we'd be happy. I was completely manipulative back then. I was judgmental. If you just eat healthy, we'd be happy. Why don't you just eat healthy? Why wouldn't you do that? That was me justifying my behavior and invalidating her. Because that's what he's doing. He's invalidating you. Because I'm not sure I've seen a healthier relationship where one partner looks down on the other partner, says all the problems are all their fault, and chooses not to support the relationship as a whole and their own responsibility in the relationship so that they can do something better. I mean, at minimum, even if he believes 100% it's your fault, why wouldn't he want to learn how to communicate with you in a better way to help you? I mean, I'm not saying that's the truth here because I don't believe it is. But even if he does believe that, which it sounds like he does, why wouldn't he want to get some sort of professional help or do some research himself to find out, I wonder what I can do to help my wife through this situation? Because if you really are a, quote, problem or the source of the problem, then why wouldn't he want to help you through this problem? Now, what you're saying is his version of helping you is telling you to go get therapy, which takes him off the hook. And in relationships, if one person is off the hook, then it's not really a relationship anymore. You can look at that as a parent-child relationship. You can look at that as a dominant-submissive relationship. You can look at it any other way except an equal relationship. A relationship involves two people equally taking responsibility for everything going on in the relationship. That's why you can call a relationship like a single entity. One person from this side, another person from this side, you create another entity. It's like a third combined person, even though that sounds weird. But this third combined person is the result of two of you. It's like you've created something together. The relationship was born of both of you. So if there are problems in the relationship, then both of you must work to fix them. So I have a real beef with someone who says, nothing is my fault and everything is their fault, because they're part of the equation. They're part of the formula, which makes them part of the problem. Even if there's a clear signal that the other person's wrong. Because there's two ways to look at it. Let's just say, for example, that one partner cheats. You can look at that as a clear indication that that person did something bad and wrong and betrayed and lied, and you can say the sole problem was with that person. No problem, you can say that. But who's going to be part of the solution? Only that person? Because I guarantee you that part of the solution has to come from the other side as well. What's the solution? The solution is healing. Now, do you heal together or apart? That's a separate issue and something that you asked. We'll get to that in a minute. But if you've experienced any type of like betrayal or cheating or infidelity, and both of you want to save the relationship, then both of you are involved. It's not just one person going to therapy, help me with my sex addiction or whatever the reason was. It's both of you getting involved because something led up to that point. It doesn't mean the other person's at fault for the one person cheating. It just means that the other person was involved with the lead up to that point. It could have been something as simple as not communicating well. I mean, that's not simple. That's a tough thing sometimes. But if there is communication issues, if there's honesty issues, if one person cries every time the hard issues are brought up, so the hard issues are never brought up again because the other person doesn't want their partner to cry, then those issues don't get brought up again, and then there's repressed feelings, and then one person's seeking emotional support from someone else, and that turns into an affair. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and this is just one example, where it seems to be a clear problem on one side of the relationship, when it's really looking at the relationship as a single thing that both of you contribute to. I'm not saying there's not blame. There could be absolute blame on one person or the other, but the responsibility lies in the aftermath where there's healing, whether you do it together or apart. If you do it together, then both of you are responsible for that healing part. Just like what you're saying, Linda, is that your husband has all these manipulative behaviors, and you call yourself out and say you have manipulative behaviors, so you're taking responsibility for what you're doing, but he's not taking responsibility for what he's doing. And he certainly sounds like, or at least from this letter, that he's not taking responsibility for any part of the problem in the relationship. And again, that's a warning sign, that's a flag that comes up and says, hey, wait, that's not right. There's supposed to be equality here. For better, for worse kind of stuff, We're supposed to work on these things together. So there's my little vent. Now, the second thing I want to mention here is that the language in your email is rather interesting because you almost sound as if you are repeating things that have been said to you instead of writing them in a way that you believe are true about you. It's sort of like when I've heard my girlfriend's son come back from being with his father for a few weeks, he'll say things in a way that really don't sound like his opinion. Like they were said as if an adult said them and he's just parroting them, repeating them to his mom or me. And I go, wait a minute, that's not his opinion. That's his father's opinion, especially when it's against his mom. When it's against his mom, I can hear his father's voice coming out of him so easily. And, his mom points that out, and I go, yeah, it's obvious that that's what's happening here. So I'm just making an observation that your email sounds as if you were told these things, but they aren't necessarily true. Some of the things that you said. I'm not going to repeat what they were, but I just want to kind of have that roll around in your head for a little bit. Everything you said may be true. Like you said, you've been controlling and emotionally clingy, and you like to manipulate things to get what you want. That stuff may be true. And that's fine, because that's what we're talking about here, and we'll figure this out. I want to help you get through it. But I just want you to keep that in mind, that sometimes when you're with manipulative people, you will start to say things that you believe about yourself that aren't true. And that's when things start shifting for the worst, is that you start believing things about yourself that aren't true. And when you have that foundation, then you feel like a bad person, an irresponsible person. You start to feel guilty for things that you believe you did and the problems that you believe you're causing in the relationship, when it turns out those were just planted by someone else. So let that roll around in your head and, give it some consideration. Now, another thing I'd like to ask you if you were here is, did you feel controlling, manipulative, insecure before the relationship began? Because oftentimes in manipulative relationships, where one partner is very controlling, very manipulative, the relationship starts off great. 1 or 2 months of this is everything I wanted in a relationship, and then things start going downhill. Did you show up in the relationship as controlling, clingy, manipulative? And have you ever been that way in other relationships too? Or did those things start 1 or 2 or 3 months after you got together? Because here's what happens. You get with a manipulative person, and sometimes the only way, to get your needs met, to get your needs fulfilled after that, is to do behavior that they do. Because there's no other way to get your needs fulfilled. There's no other way to get what you need from them. So now you have to do things that are atypical of you, that are not you at all. And you find out what works by being manipulative. I've often, and I hate to say this, I've often given the advice to people in manipulative relationships, in order to get what they need, they might have to manipulate, because everything else they try doesn't work. You try the compassionate approach. You try the emotionally connected approach. You try the sympathetic approach. You try all these approaches that are kind and loving and nurturing, and they twist it against you and they make you feel bad. And so after trying all these kind and supportive ways, each time getting it slapped back in your face, you end up doing the one thing that you didn't want to do, which is doing it in a deceptive way, being manipulative. So I want you to consider this too. If you didn't come into the relationship with all these qualities, and you feel like you developed them in the relationship, it was most likely a point where you felt it was the only way to get your needs fulfilled. And that's typically because you will not be able to communicate with the manipulative person any other way. The manipulator needs to be manipulated to get what you need. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's typically the default behavior that tends to work. The only problem with that is the manipulator gets mad, sees that you're the problem, like you said, and blames the problems on you, because now he's not getting his way. As soon as they don't get their way, using manipulation, then they see that as a problem. Keep that in mind too. Now you said, I think that the relationship has been extremely toxic and it's never going to work and I may be wasting my time. But then you ask yourself, is this my reason talking, or my insecurity telling me to run away instead of face reality? Let's just put it this way. No matter what's talking, the relationship is toxic. Even if I was 100% wrong and it really is all your fault, the relationship is still toxic. Because I guarantee you, you wouldn't be that way with someone who was fulfilling your needs in a healthy way. Again, unless you brought these into the relationship and you were already an emotionally manipulative person, most people who are made to feel bad and guilty and really take it on, are typically the more emotionally connected people, are typically the more compassionate and kind and nurturing and supportive people. And because they are that way, their good qualities get used against them. And you have easy access to cheerful thoughts, just as you have easy access to guilty thoughts. And they know how to plant those guilty thoughts in you. I'm not pinpointing the blame on him. I don't know exactly what is happening in your relationship, but the language of the email alone tells me a lot, like I said. So I want you to consider that regardless of what you think is happening, whether it's your insecurity telling you to run away, or your reason is trying to rationalize things in your brain, either way, it's toxic. So you did follow up with the question, well, what if I am healing? Won't that change everything? So that's the big question, isn't it? Is what if I am healing and he sees those changes in me and he realizes, hey, this is the person I want to be with. And then the marriage gets better. So here's where I have to use my crystal ball. Here's where I need to make a guess. And my guess is going to be based on my experience with couples that have very similar characteristics of what you describe. And it tells me that as you start to heal and become more empowered in yourself and learn how to honor your boundaries and learn when he crosses the line to stand up and say, hey, you're crossing the line, don't cross that line. The more you come into you, the more authentic you are and the more powerful you feel inside, the more, and this is my opinion, the more he's going to hate it. Because you already told me that he is a manipulative person. Manipulative people don't like people who honor their boundaries. Manipulative people don't like people who make them accountable for their behavior. They like people who submit. They like people who are easily coerced. They like people who would do exactly what they want them to do. So you know how to test your relationship? Is you honor yourself one day, and then if he goes against that and says, how dare you, stand up for yourself, or whatever he says, I'm sure it's not going to be that, then you can ask the question, do you support me honoring myself? Because I feel like you're disrespecting me, and I'm sure that you don't want me to feel that way, right? I mean, you might have to start challenging him in things like this, because as you learn, heal, grow, and evolve, you're going to feel better and better in yourself. And because you feel better in yourself, you're going to want less toxic people in your life. And what's great is that as you learn more about yourself, you learn more about him. You'll actually see the behavior in real time when it happens, so that when he tries to pull something on you, you can call him out right then and there. And I tell you what, most of it has to do with invalidation. When you sense an invalidation from him, like you say, I feel really sad. And he goes, what? You shouldn't feel sad, and follows it up with something else. That's an invalidation. You shouldn't feel sad. I mean, that's like telling you, you shouldn't have authentic emotions. You should only have the emotions that I want you to have. You have to be aware that when you have a feeling of invalidation, that something is happening in that moment, and you need to stop the conversation, or at least stop yourself from going to any other thoughts and go, wait, something happened. I feel something. Is this the invalidation Paul was talking about? This might be it. What did he say? What did I say? What just happened? You might have to stop it. You might have to walk away and think about it. But once you start catching these things and calling him out more and more, he's probably not going to be very happy about it, because that means you're not submitting. That means you're not doing what he wants you to do. But it does mean that you are now very aware of the behavior, and you'll find out if he supports your happiness or not. I tell you what, when you're in love, you just heard me tell you this in the last segment, when you're in love with somebody and you love them, you're going to want them to be happy. You're going to want them not to be the problem or have problems, or you're going to want to help them figure out what the problems are. Because if you really are the problem, as he says, then it's not about him fixing you or someone else fixing you. It's about going at it together with curiosity and trying to figure it out together. If he points the finger and says, no, it's all you, then he's already closed his mind. I mean, there's no convincing him after that. So the idea that you might be able to keep the relationship as you heal, in my opinion, in my crystal ball, I say that it's a very slim chance that your relationship can survive your personal growth and healing. The very slim chance. Because if he is who I believe him to be, he's not going to like you getting a good head on your shoulders and a healthy perspective of life and living and honoring yourself. He's just not going to like it. I hope I'm wrong. Please write to me. Tell me I'm wrong. But if I'm not, then it's very important for you to continue going in the direction that supports you. You want to keep honoring yourself, taking the healthy path and keeping toxic elements out of your life. So yes, you could be controlling and clingy and manipulating things, and it could be because he started it and you had to develop it in the relationship. But even if all of that is true, even if you are all those things and he is all those things, you being together enable each other. You know, you want me to break it down into one big picture comment. You being together enable each other. And I truly believe that even if you healed, if he is not on a healing path himself, it's not going to get any better. Now, if he really is seeking therapy right now along with you, and you are seeing changes, positive changes, yes, there's a chance. I also believe that sometimes it's good to spend time apart. Spend a few days at your parents, at your friends, or whoever, and take some time to yourself so that when you see each other again, you've had time to reflect without their influence on you. It's very helpful to do that. Thank you so much, Linda. I hope this helps in some way, shape, or form. Send me an update. We'll be right back, say our goodbyes, and then close the show. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. Hey, did I tell you the MEAN worksheet is now available for pre-order? MEAN stands for Manipulation and Emotional Abuse Number. That's right. It gives you a number and evaluates just how much emotional abuse might be going on in your relationship. You can get it now, before September 4th, 2017, for $29, before it goes to $39 on that date. Like I said, the MEAN worksheet is basically an evaluation of your relationship. Is your relationship manipulative? Are you being manipulated? I get a lot of emails on the subject, so I created a 140-plus checklist of the signs to highlight what you might be going through. Not only that, I have audio interviews with experts and survivors of emotional abuse, along with a path to your next steps. Should you stay? Should you go? Can your relationship survive? Is it doomed? All this and more to help you regain your power after emotional manipulation. So check it out. There's more information at theoverwhelmedbrain.com/MEAN, M-E-A-N. And I want to thank getoutofthemess.com. If you want to know more about it, call Asha, 678-355-8777. And I want to thank members of the Patron program for their extremely important support. The Patron program helps support the show, along with getting some goodies back, like private episodes, worksheets, and even email coaching. Check it out at patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. If you want to support the show in another way besides using the Patron program, just use the Amazon button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. It's easy and it helps out quite a bit. Thank you if you're already using it. And one more announcement, the Overwhelmed Brain book is available through Amazon or Barnes & Noble or your favorite bookseller. That's right, get the A to Z of personal empowerment today. If you like what I talk about on the show, you'll love how I packed it all into this book, The Overwhelmed Brain, Personal Growth for Critical Thinkers. Finally, thank you to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. And to close the show, I'm going to make a recommendation to you. If you want to watch an interesting TED Talk, I highly recommend the one called How One Tweet Can Ruin Your Life by John Ronson. I never knew about the story behind this. I wasn't aware of the news when it happened. I guess 2 or 3 years ago, someone named Justine Sacco, I think is how you pronounce her name. She was on a flight to, I think, Africa, and she had a Twitter following of about 170 people, and while on the flight, she's just making these little updates. If you don't know what Twitter is, you can type about 140 characters just to update your fans and friends. It's a way to connect with people in short bursts. It's great for an ADHD centered universe because it's really quick information. And it's like, hey, I'm on the plane, and then somebody's following your Twitter and they see you're on the plane. Great, I got a message. She's on the plane. It's not as direct as texting or posting something on Facebook. It's just a quick update. It's like a feed. Well, anyway, she was updating her Twitter feed, and she started saying some other things like, "Oh, I'm next to this guy with BO," and "Oh, I can't wait to land," and other things like that. But she sent one tweet that, quite frankly, ruined her life. She had 170 followers, and when she tweeted this, nobody responded, and she got on the plane and didn't think twice about it. But when she got off the plane, her tweet went viral and was the #1 talked about thing in social media, and almost the entire world hated her. And this all happened within a few hours. She tweeted one thing that was misunderstood, or at least she didn't mean it the way it came out, and most of the world was against her, and she got fired from her job, and she was sent threats, and it changed her life completely. She had to probably go into hiding. And I just thought it was a fascinating TED Talk. Again, it's called How One Tweet Can Ruin Your Life. You can find it on YouTube or something. Because he talks about how the internet can really make or break us, because we are connected to everyone all the time now. And another thing is that when we type something online, it can be easily misinterpreted. The subtle sarcasms or humor that we add in our everyday language with people one-on-one isn't in our texting and messaging and posting and things like that. So it's highly likely that we're going to read someone's posts or tweets in our own inflection. I just talked about this in an episode or two ago. Our own voice, and we're going to interpret it our own way. You can use emoticons and smiley faces and things like that to kind of convey where you are with the emotion, but it still doesn't always get the point across. And I just want you to watch it. I just want you to check it out and be highly cognizant of it, because it's all about public shaming. And all it takes is one message misinterpreted to ruin your entire life. At least change it big time, like what happened to Justine Sacco. It really highlights how careful you have to word things, especially online. It really highlights just how something can go viral if it's taken the wrong way. Now, I'm not giving her full pass here, because what she said was probably politically incorrect. Even though it was a play on the ignorance of many people, that play, that angle, was not conveyed in the message. When he shows you the message on the video, you'll understand. But the whole point is just to be aware that it's so easy to be misunderstood when you are not in the room to explain, when you are typing things online. Even in the old days when we used to write, when we wrote something, all we have is those words. And words are such a tiny part of communication because there's no eye contact, there's no body language. You can't tell what the other person is doing with their hands. You can't see their facial expressions. There's so much missing. So it's always good to be aware. I mean, especially now, we have a politically charged climate, and the things we say online today will be there forever. And I don't know how many Facebook friends I saw talk about politics, especially after Trump got elected. and lost so many of their friends and even family because they went online and were just expressing and emoting their highly charged opinions. And if you weren't on one person's side, you were their enemy. And probably to this day, there are friends and family that don't speak to each other because of the political atmosphere. So, often it's not worth losing friends and family over much of the conversation that goes online, if any of the conversation that goes online, because you're not there, you're not in front of them, you can't see the pain in their face or the worry in their expression, like, oh no, so-and-so's elected, or oh no, so-and-so didn't get elected, and I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about that. This actual connection and emotion and thoughtfulness between one-on-one conversation in front of each other, as opposed to just typing something out and sending it off. There's hardly any connection there. You can't see the person's face when they read your post. We just often feel righteous in what we typed, and that's how it should be. And then feelings are hurt, and connections are broken, and friendships are lost. I just hate to see that. It's great to have opinions, and it's great to stand up for those opinions and stand up for what's right for you. But how far do you go when you're doing that? And how many people may get hurt because of how you worded something, and maybe you didn't even mean to word it in a bad way. So anyway, I think this TED Talk is a good social commentary, a good thing to talk about and at least absorb philosophically and wonder if it could happen to you. Check it out. And while you watch it, keep an open mind so that you can step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.